go ahead and call the Senate to order. The Sergeant-at-Arms will please secure the doors. Members, please take your seats. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. President.
All right, Senators, this morning we are very, very pleased to have Reverend Tyrone Thomas from Charity Church in Baltimore, Maryland, guest of the distinguished senator from District 44. Members, please rise for the invocation.
Let us bow for prayer. O Lord, our Lord, how excellent is your name in all the earth. We come today to first thank you for being God and the creator of all mankind. Lord, we ask that you continue to keep and protect us as we start our day and to help us fulfill our daily tasks and duties. Dear Lord, we ask that you continue to help us conquer the crisis we are experiencing in our world. Dear Lord, we pray that you would grant us peace around the world. We know that there is a lot going on in our world, and things seem to be seemingly out of control, but we know that you are in control. God, we humbly ask that you give us wisdom, the compassion, and understanding it requires to govern and guide your people. Lord, help us to seize every moment you set before us and teach us how to use them to better mankind. God, we thank you for your abiding presence and your continued support. We ask that you lead us as we follow your gentle promptings. Help us to be strong and very courageous as we address the concerns of our world and the cares of your people. We also ask that this be done in your faithful and trusted name. Amen.
Amen. Well done, sir. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Chair recognizes the senator from the 44th District.
Thank you, Mr. President. Last week we honored those who were graduates of our HBCUs. Pastor Thomas graduated with honors in 2002 from Morgan State University, as well as from Howard School of Divinity in 2006. He began his spiritual growth at Wayland Baptist Church, then moving on to First Mount Olive Free Will Baptist Church. He became the pastor of Charity on December 8th of 2004, and has been a pillar in our community since then. During these pandemic times, I've had a number of opportunities to go to the church when they were sponsoring food drives and food giveaways, and we certainly appreciate their efforts in support of our community. And with that, I ask that this prayer be journalized.
Without objection, we'll certainly journalize the pastor's wonderful invocation this morning and thank him for his efforts, not just as shepherding his people, but also the work in the community, which is so critical, so critical. So thank you, sir. All right, has everyone recorded their presence in the chamber? All right, we're missing a few. If so, well, we'll let the senators get on back there. Our stragglers have made their way in. Almost. All right, the clerk will take the call. With 43 members in the chamber and a quorum being present, the Senate of Maryland is now in session. Introductions. Yes, Chair recognizes the senator from Howard and Carroll counties.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I'd like to introduce you to Mr. Ben Yellen from the University Center for Health and Homeland Security. Mr. Yellen, would you please stand?
Behind us.
There he is. He is the Director for Public Policy and External Affairs at the Center for Health and Homeland Security, and he's been working on the state and local cybersecurity study for the Maryland Cybersecurity Council. He's here today to testify on 2 of the 3 bills in the cybersecurity package, and him and his teams of externs have done hundreds and hundreds of hours of pro bono work to work on this study. And so I'd just like to welcome him and ask that the Senate body give him a round of applause.
Thank you, Senator. Welcome. Thank you for being with us. Thank you as well for your work on this important issue. We had a conversation with MSBA yesterday and asking sort of the banking impacts in Russia and Ukraine, and they said the #1 issue is the increase in cyber attacks that have happened in the last 8 days. So, it's the private sector, but it's also our public sector, which has been very, very, very vulnerable. So thank you, Senator. All right, any further introductions? Yes, Chair recognizes Senator from Carroll County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Actually, substituting for a colleague of mine who had to be off the floor this morning, I'm introducing the doctor of the day, Dr. Mike Niehoff he's in family practice with MedStar Franklin Square Medical Center. Ask the body to give him a warm welcome and thank him for being here to help us today.
Welcome. Thank you, Doctor. Appreciate you being here today and your work in family medicine. All right, any other introductions? All right, a few administrative notes. First, I want to thank all the senators who came last night to the vigil that we held outside of the State House. It was just a really wonderful event, and I think that it was really powerful. The number of people that were there, the Ukrainian Americans who were in attendance, you could feel the level of support. It just was a really, really, really nice and powerful and meaningful event. So just appreciate the governor for putting it together and the members who were able to join. It really mattered, and it was a great turnout, and just I think it was the right message for a very scary time.
Mr. President?
Yes, Chair recognizes the senator from College Park.
Thank you. I agree with everything you said, but I also, for those who were not able to attend, your remarks were spectacular. They were spectacular.
Thank you.
And for those who weren't there, the president put this in the large context of the values that we as Marylanders and we as Americans have. And it's not just our sympathy for people who are dying, although it is sympathy for people who are dying. It's about our values, what created Maryland, why we have the longest operating state house in the United States, and the values that sometimes we take for granted. So I just want to say, Mr. President, I appreciated the fact that you made that happen and that you came with such really eloquent remarks.
Well, thank you, sir. Thank you. Much appreciated. Thank you. It was a really, really wonderful affair. It was great. Terrible that it had to happen, but in the context, it was wonderful. A couple other administrative notes. Folks may have noticed and have asked me for the last, 50 days, I've been meaning to make this announcement, but here we are, 40 days left, and now I can remember. There is the cabinet in the back hallway that used to be filled with lots of kind of trinkets and goods, and they were of former Senator Miller's kind of collection of things, and a lot of them were athletic related or signed things, and all of those have been donated to College Park and where the family has asked them to be distributed. But now we have an empty cabinet, and so I had been thinking for a while about what would make sense instead of just doing sort of random trinkets, that if each senator had something or some representation of their district. It could be a product that's produced there, or some sort of representative thing that we could put on display. Would like to use that cabinet as a place to kind of show the variety of the state of Maryland. So nothing urgent, but thought it might be a nice way for all of us to participate and bring something from home and have it here in the Senate that can kind of be there for the indefinite future. So think about that over the weekend. If you have something, please feel free to bring it next week, and we'll try to put it together in an orderly way. The other thing is Senate's past is tonight. So we will have, there is no dinner for a variety of reasons, sadly, honestly, but there were some concerns when everything was getting organized and wasn't sure what it would be like in March. But there will be a reception in the lounge. A number of former senators will be coming by, and they will do their proceedings here in the afternoon, but you will see a number of former senators around the campus today, so please take some time to say hello and let them know just how wonderful things are. Yes, Chair recognizes Senator from District 10.
In that case, could we get the list of senators who passed since we were last in session, and maybe we could have a prayer or
Great point.
Yeah.
Certainly. We will make sure that we do that. Yes, absolutely. Oh, we do have it. Yes, excellent. We will. Yes, Chair recognizes Senator from Montgomery County.
I don't think I heard you say what time it was.
Oh,
and
I'm sorry, yes.
I had
4 to
also
6,
heard.
right? 4 o'clock. 4 o'clock.
Okay. I had previously been told that current senators were not invited, so we are allowed to stop by?
If you'd like to stop by and say hello to people, I think it would be more than appropriate. They were trying to keep it as a smaller group So feel free, while folks are here, to wander in and out. I suspect some committees may be operating, so they will appreciate seeing people, I think. All right. Senate's passed. The other big announcement, this is a kind of a neat one. We're going to have a ceremony on Maryland Day, which is the 25th, March 25th. The Sons of the Revolution of Maryland have commissioned a new gavel, not this official one, but a Senate of Maryland gavel that will actually be on display in the archives. And it is a really, really very intricate, incredibly handcrafted representative gavel. And so they will be dedicating it at the Baltimore Basilica on March 19th at 11 a.m. So senators are more than welcome to join. It's a Saturday. I know Saturdays are particularly challenging at times, but it'll be a nice gathering. They're going to take the pride of Baltimore and travel the gavel to Baltimore, and then they'll travel back to Annapolis, and there will be a big celebration as they bring the gavel to the Senate on Maryland Day. So more details to come about the Maryland Day celebration, but on just if you're available on March 19th and interested in coming to the Baltimore Basilica, we'll have a nice dedication ceremony. I think those are all of the administrative notes that we have. So we'll get all these out in a memo so that everyone has it beyond just the verbal reminders. But all right, any other pieces of business before we jump into things today? Chair recognizes the senator from District 1.
Thank you, Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen of the Senate. Today and tomorrow is Mountain Maryland Day in Annapolis. I hope you all got your bags of goodies. You can have pancakes tomorrow morning and use that good mountain maple syrup on them. You'll notice the bag wasn't as full as it usually is because we're still in some economic doldrums out there. So businesses didn't quite contribute as in the past. Tonight there'll be a reception at the Westin from 5 to 7:30, and tomorrow morning breakfast starting at 8 o'clock. Our good president's going to speak to the group tomorrow morning at some point. I'm not sure what time frame it is, but
I think it's 8:30.
8:30. So you're all welcome to come to that. And say hi to a lot of great people from the mountains who are down here for 2 days to talk to all of you, to express some of our interest and concerns of what's going on, and asking for support in some things. And if I might, Mr. Chairman, or Mr. President, I'm sorry. You know, distance-wise, it's hard to get people from up there to come down here to be recognized for things. Where most of you live close by, you get your schools to come here, you get businesses to come here, you get other people to come here to be recognized. And we don't get a lot of the mainstream media in the state, so they don't say what's going on up there. So I just want to take a minute, if I might, and tell you some of the good things that are going on. The other week, my good friend from District 45 had Dunbar High School down here, which is great. I don't remember how many titles they won, but I just want to say Fort Hill High School, which is one of your main rivals now, have won 8 titles in their class, 5 probably in the last 10 years, and probably played Dunbar most of those games. Dunbar won 1 year, Fort Hill 1 year, vice versa. This year they were in 2 categories. Both went undefeated and both won their division. Plus Allegheny High School has won 8. Fort Hill's won 8, Allegheny's won 8. We've won a lot of titles in cross country and wrestling and other things, which most of you don't hear about, which is great. It shows our students are active in a lot of extracurricular activities, and that's part of the educational process, in my opinion. Now, one other thing. We have a great educational system in our county, in Allegheny County, Garrett County. Most of the time they're ranked in the top 5 or top 10 in the state in all categories in K through 12 education. If I'm wrong, I'm sure the chairman will tell me, but if you look, you'll see they're ranked very high. I got this information from the president of the college, Garrett College, which I assume is accurate. I just want you to know where Garrett College is. Garrett College registered the state's highest 4-year graduation transfer rates in all 4 major categories. All students, 68.5%. College-ready students, 88.1%. Development completers, 68.7%. And developmental non-completers, 48.8%. Garrett College's rate were at least 11% over the state average in each category. 18% over the state average among college-ready students. Garrett College also led the state in successful persister rate for college-ready students, 95.2%. I just wanted to bring a couple of those things out because we can't get a lot of people to come down here and stand up here and be recognized. We're doing a lot of great things in the mountains. We'd like to be able to do a few more. We ask for a little help from you all to help us do a little bit more. And we'll invite all of you out to our part of the state. Some of you came out and liked it so well, you bought homes out there. They're sitting on the floor, won't mention any names. But we appreciate their tax input to our area. And Mr. President, let's say there are several people up here above you from Mountain, Maryland today, and there'll probably be some here tomorrow. So if we give them a great round of applause, I'd appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Senator. I know that those folks who I can't quite see but are there behind me know that you're the greatest champion there is for Western Maryland, and they have been so fortunate to have your incredible representation for so many years. It's truly been remarkable. And telling the story, it is hard. It's hard when people can't. It's a long way away. And at Fort Hill, I'll tell you, those are some big boys. I don't know what they feed over in the mountains, but when they were able to come, that looks like they're 26. So. That's it. So something different in the water there. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for those reflections, and we're just so grateful for all the great work and really, truly great stuff happening in Western Maryland. Those are great numbers about Garrett College. I did not know that. That is really remarkable.
Mr. President?
Yes, Chair Recognizes Senator from College Park.
Just to underline the Senator's points about academic performance, as you know, I follow what goes on with career and technical education across the state. And on average, across the state, about 26% of our high school graduates complete a CTE program. The Kerwin law says that by 2031, we want 45% of our high school graduates to complete a CTE program. I look at the data every year. Every year, the top rating in the state for CTE completions goes back and forth between Garrett County and Kent County. This last year, I believe it was 75%, way over the Kerwin goal.
Wow.
Of high school students completing CT programs. So, as always, the Senator's right on.
Well said. Well said. Thank you for that observation. All right, any other introductions before we jump in today? Or remarks? If not, so we consider the reading of the journal from the prior legislative day. We've got a few more bills still coming in. We hit 1,000 today. We hit 1,000. Clerk will read the bills.
Senate Bill 997, Senator Eckert, Correctional Officers Retirement System, Talbot County. Rules.
Majority Leader moves so be considered the reading of the bills. They will be referred to the Standing Committee on Rules. We have another Senate resolution. Clerk will read the resolution.
Senate Joint Resolution 9, Minority Leader, General Assembly Compensation Commission, recommendation, rules.
All right, the resolution will be referred to the Standing Committee on Rules. We have laid over bill. This is calendar number 12. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 372, Senator Kagan, Environment, Coal Tar Sealing Products, Prohibitions, Safer Sealing Act of 2022. Question is on the adoption of the committee amendments and the favorable report.
All right, Senators, the question before the body is on the three committee amendments. Chair recognizes the Senator from District 6 on the amendments.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a couple questions.
Will the floor leader yield to a question? Appears so. Senator may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning. Just have a couple questions, and that's why I laid it over. Can you define exactly what is a driveway?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
The definition of a driveway?
I'm not sure if it's in the bill, but I think it's a place in which you park your car in front of your home.
Okay.
I assume that's a lay definition of that.
What about a parkway?
Parkway?
Yes.
We're checking. No. I don't want to be flip, so I won't. We're checking. Can we
Okay.
come back to that question?
Sure, sure.
There is no definition.
Okay, well, then we have a problem because if it's not a definition for a parkway, I would love to get one. Third, what is the long-term cost of switching to another product for this bill?
Which line give me some context here, Senator, if you would.
Well, we know we're trying to ban a product, and we know that there's other people that are not favorable for this bill and the product that we're trying to ban. We want to know what the long-term cost if they would have to use another product, banning this product that we're.
Yeah, what line of the bill? I just want some context. I assume you're quoting a section of the bill, or are you just quoting opposition? Help me out here a little bit.
Okay. Well, what's the cost of the new product? Maybe we can say that.
I'm sorry, Senator?
The product, the replacement product that we're going to be used, what's the cost of that?
It's comparable.
It's comparable?
Yes. Look, we have narrowed this to only those with a high PAH, which has been deemed, and by experience, by people who even lay it down, to cause irritation, problems with breathing. There are other products, there's called liquid petroleum LP, which a lot of these people use as well. And 3 or 4 counties have already gotten rid of the high PAH, which is very dangerous. It also allows for asphalt sealant. I mean, there are a lot of other options.
Okay.
I mean, there are a couple of companies that may be affected by this, but just as Howard County and Montgomery County and either Anne Arundel or Prince George's have adopted policies, that's where the state's going. Just like last week we talked about PFAS being dangerous and proven to be dangerous, this is what we're doing here.
Okay. Were there areas that were exempt in this bill?
Yes.
Okay, can you give us those, please?
Yeah, they are airports, federal facilities, or military facilities.
Okay, and why, if this product is so dangerous, why did we exempt these areas?
Repeat the last part of that.
If we deemed this so dangerous, why did we exempt these 3 areas?
Federal preemption.
By federal? Okay. And just the last question, and I thank you for your patience. Why, the reason these fines are extremely high, it seems like they're very high. Why are we going so far as to saying there's a $25,000 fine and the maximum would be $100,000? Why are we going that far?
Well, there are 2 answers to that. First of all, this is just like with PFAS, this is going to be addressed at the manufacturing distribution level. And once this becomes law, as it has in other counties, they're going to change over. So this is not a fine, I'm going to catch you, I'm going to catch you, I'm going to catch you. And secondly, it's up to. So there's discretion here to be addressed. But again, I'm going to use the example that we had last week that I think a lot of people supported, the PFAS to protect firefighters. This is simply a change. The manufacturers are understanding this. It's growing all over the country. It's growing here in Maryland. They're going to change their practices and what they can produce. And then the people who come to your house to reseal your driveway that starts to crack or show some wear, they'll be using the LP or the asphalt sealant instead of the high PFAS, which does create some problems. And again, some of the people who use it are among the people who testified say, I don't use it anymore. So we think it's reasonable. We think we struck a balance, and that's why the bill's before you.
Do we have examples like what other states have done this?
We'll check. But I can tell you, like I said, already 3 or 4 large counties here in Maryland has done it. Minnesota, and there may be others. I'm not sure.
Okay, I'd like to maybe look into that. Also, I think I do, and I will be having some amendments, so thank you very much. Mr. President, these questions I think were important not just to me, but the other businesses that are in the state of Maryland. And these changes will be, I think, detrimental to them. and I'd like to look into some amendments, so I'd like to special order this if I could, see?
And senators moved to special order the bill until tomorrow. Is that the motion, sir?
If that's okay, thank you, sir.
Let's hear from the floor leader on the special order.
Yeah, Mr. President, we're going to be respectful and give it another day because we have time, but the bill was heard, we've had debate, it was laid over yesterday, so I think if people want to oppose it, they should oppose it, and we should just have that conversation straight up. So we'll give it the day, but I'd like to move forward tomorrow.
All right, no objections to the special order. Are there any objections to the special order? Without objection, so ordered. The bill and the amendments will be special ordered to the appropriate time tomorrow. All right, we have a re-referral. This is out of Education and Health. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 909, Senator Klossmeyer, Health Occupations, Nursing Home Administrator Qualifications, re-referred to Finance.
All right, the bill is re-referred to Finance. All right, we have another report out of Education, Health, Environmental Affairs. This is number 19. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 55, Senator Signor, Baltimore County Board of Education, retention of counsel, favorable.
Chair recognizes the senator from Howard County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 55 expands the authority of the Baltimore County Board of Education to retain counsel by specifying that the board may retain counsel to represent it in any legal matter affecting the board. Under the current law, the board may only retain counsel in legal matters involving disputes with the county government. This bill also allows the board to contract for the payment of a reasonable fee to the council. And if the board does retain counsel, funds for the council must be provided in the annual budget of the board. There are no committee amendments. Move the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. On the report, any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 55 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 157, Senator Carter, Baltimore City Board of School Commissioners, student members and task force to study compensation, favorable with 3 amendments.
Chair recognizes the senator from Baltimore City as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. This Baltimore City bill alters the membership of the Baltimore City Board of School Commissioners by adding 1 additional student. In addition, the bill expands the voting rights of student members while also altering the selection process for student members such that the members are nominated and elected rather than appointed. Finally, the bill establishes a task force to study board member compensation. The bill takes effect July 2022. There are 3 committee amendments that are the results of conversation among the senators, the sponsor, and stakeholders. Amendment number 1 makes technical changes to the bill's title. Amendment number 2 strikes provisions establishing a second student member of the board, while alters the process for electing the student member, and alters the manner on which student members may vote. Amendment number 3 alters the membership of the task force and expands the scope of the task force duties to include the study of adding a second student member to the board. I ask for adoption of the 3 committee amendments and the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the 3 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The 3 committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 157 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 367, Senator Pinsky, Patuxent River Commission membership, favorable with 3 amendments.
Chair recognizes the chair of the committee as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have a Patuxent River Commission in the state of Maryland. The Patuxent River is, I think, the longest or largest river encapsulated within the state. The Potomac obviously hits Virginia and other places, but Patuxent is, I believe, the either longest or widest or largest river in the state. And many people may remember the late Bernie Fowler, our colleague, the late Senator Bernie Fowler, who each year would walk in to see how many inches or feet it would take to see his feet in terms of trying to look at the clarity of the river. They're an advisory group. This past year, on the reappointment of some of the members, 3 long-term members who happen to have been fairly vocal on a lot of issues were not reappointed. One of those people was the Patuxent River keeper, who had been on it for 26 years, I think it's in inception. He was not reappointed, because occasionally when issues came up about development along the Patuxent, he would raise questions. And again, he understood it was advisory, but he was told to be quiet. So 3 important members were not reappointed. And I can't say what the motivation was, if it was retaliation, but in this case, the person was a farmer, longtime river keeper, happened to be a minority, and fairly clear and outspoken, and has wandered these halls of Annapolis for many, many years. So this bill, ladies and gentlemen, came in to say, that's not good policy. Here's a river keeper who's checking the salinity of the not salinity, the clarity of the river and a lot of other tests, and he's getting dumped. So the committee looked at this. I think we had a very terrific hearing that day. And Senate Bill 367 adds the Patuxent River Keeper as a permanent full voting member of the Patuxent River Commission and makes other changes to commission membership. So it's not this individual, it's whoever in the future is the Patuxent River Keeper who has taken on that responsibility. We've also made the president of the University of Maryland, this is amendment number 2, the first is technical. We made the president of the University of Maryland Center for Environmental Science a permanent member of the commission and adds a representative of an organization or a unit of local government that engages in watershed management and restoration to the commission. Amendment number 3 makes an emergency measure. We want to correct this action as quickly as possible. So, Mr. President, I appreciate you letting me take time to explain this bill, but we thought it was important, and we think we have to rectify what we think was a major error. I move adoption of 3 committee amendments, favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the 3 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, Chair recognizes the minority whip.
I wonder if the floor leader would yield for a question.
Before it appears so, Senator may proceed.
I'd love to.
Yes. Could you just tell me, what is the qualification to be a river keeper?
Ooh, that's a great question. I know there are a number of tasks that you have to do in terms of testing the water, observing the water, going down the water. We have them throughout the state. We have, I know a number, we have the shore river keepers who, they don't check for their party, they check for their commitment to try to keep that river clean and to monitor it. I mean, more important, it's someone who's willing to monitor it and puts the time into monitoring it. I don't believe they have to show a PhD or they have to show their party affiliation. And I don't know who it's selected by or approved by. I have to be clear. It's part of a statewide group, and they will select water keepers for the rivers as people come forward. Or if someone says it's been great, I put in for 5 years, they will seek someone else who will be the designated river keeper for that river. And again, there's some accountability in terms of things they have to do to monitor the river.
Is it the group is like a nonprofit statewide? Is that?
Absolutely.
Okay, and then, so this commission
They don't get paid.
Oh, I understand, volunteers. And so this commission, currently, the Patuxent River Commission, I think you said there's 34 members, I read in the fiscal note.
I believe that's right.
So are there representatives, I assume, from other nonprofit groups and things
Oh,
of
yeah,
that nature?
and most are appointed by the second floor.
Right.
I mean, there are a few that are designated by their position. So we have some like that.
Right.
I mean, one of the other people, for example, who was not renewed was a professor emeritus from Johns Hopkins in biology. She had been on it a number of times. There was someone from Columbia area. Patuxent goes up, obviously, through the state. And they worked on watershed situations. So it's a mix and match of people. I could probably read you the list.
No, it's okay, and I understand. I'm curious about, so the river keepers will appoint someone for this board. Will that person, and I didn't see it in the bill, so I'm legitimately asking, are they going to be before Senate confirmation?
No.
Do the other members come before Senate confirmation that are on this board? I know it's 34 members, but I mean, are they all before Senate confirmation?
Checking. I mean, right now, as we're waiting on that, Senator, it's made very briefly 2 individuals representing farming interests individual representing business interests. They are advising consent of the Senate. 4 individuals representing environmental and citizens' interests, developer interests, academic interests, soil conservation districts. These are all advising consent. The riverkeeper would not be advising consent, and the ex officio members from Department of Ag, Environment, Natural Resources, et cetera, obviously are not advising consent, nor is Chief of the Planning Division of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers.
So, but this looks to me like, and this is just the only question I have, it looks to me like this would be the only person
No.
that does not either have advising consent or the designee of someone like the Secretary of Agriculture who's advising consent. I guess the U.S. Army Corps of
Well,
Engineers.
if you look on page 2,
Yeah.
an individual representing the WSSC appointed by the governor, and then from the regional planning agencies, Maryland National Capital Park and Planning, Prince George's, Montgomery, Tri-County Council for Southern Maryland, they do not go through advising consent as well. And the person who is selected from a municipality does not go through advising consent. Someone from a federal facility in the watershed does not go through advising consent. So,
okay, it does seem like
half do, half don't. The governor has a lot of discretion, and as was reminded, this was approved 11-0 in the committee.
Okay. I wonder if I would like to. I'd love to offer an amendment to be able to be sure that they receive, because we're talking about a statewide group that is not. Everybody else on this commission seems like is from some sort of government entity or the designee of some sort of government entity. And believe me, I know it's me talking. I'm not saying that's always the best way to do things, but I do think if it's a non-governmental entity, we should have some advising consent on this commission. And I'm honestly not trying to delay the bill, but I'd like to see if I could order an amendment to ask to add it.
Yeah, well, Senator, I mean, there are others. I mean, for example, if you're going to change this, you should probably do it for MML as well, because the person coming from a municipality is appointed by the governor without advising consent. So there are others. So if you're going to try to put this person under that purview, you should probably do all the others. And if you want to increase our workload on executive noms, you can do that.
Well, I'm new to the committee, so. I wonder if I could special order this bill for, I don't know if I'd have time, but later in the calendar. I'm honestly not trying to delay the bill, but I do think this is an issue that's important.
I mean,
Mr. President, I've seen riverkeepers. There's some that do a great job, and then there's also a lot of folks that come with a certain point of view and agenda, and that's why they're being added to a 34-member board. I recognize they're not being added to become the majority on the board. I do think a little bit of oversight on appointments is, if we're going to take away the governor's ability on this one, which is, is a legitimate point of view to argue, I think we should include Senate advising consent. But I can special order for tomorrow, or we could try for later today. I don't know how quick we can get the amendment.
well, let's see.
Well, there are amendments, as the president's about to point out.
Gotcha.
I would say the vice chair of this commission has said publicly of the valued experience of this person who has served as a Patuxent River keeper. If you want to add, hoops, we'll listen to it, but we're going to have other concerns because we're not doing it for 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 of the others.
Why don't we lay it over?
Yeah, we can. That's right. There's amendments. Lay it over.
Okay.
I'll be ready tomorrow.
Senators moved to lay over the bill. The senator's motion is in order, and the bill and the amendments will lay over until tomorrow. All right, clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 414, Senator Signor, Baltimore County Board of Education, membership and election of officers, favorable.
Chair recognizes the senator from Baltimore City as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 414 is a Baltimore County bill. It alters the membership of the Baltimore County Board of Education. It adds an additional member. It alters the number of votes required by the Board of Education to elect a chair and a vice chair. The bill makes conforming changes to require the county executive to appoint the board member through the same Baltimore County School Nominating Commission process that the governor is required to use to appoint members, and also that the county executive fill a vacancy in the county in the appointed seat in the same manner that the governor fills vacancies, and that a candidate for an elected seat may not be appointed by the county executive. There are no committee amendments. It was voted unanimously. We ask for the adoption of the committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 414 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 425, Senator Riley, Real Estate Associate Brokers and Salesperson, compensation payment from title insurance producer, favorable.
Chair recognizes bill sponsors. The floor leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Over the past year, our hardworking real estate agents have come up against an administrative hurdle. So those of you who have been licensed for real estate, have a family member who's been in real estate, or know real estate agents know that they are so excited about the closing date because they look at it as a payday. They're finally going to get their commission. And this has been a tradition for 30 or 40 years. The Board of Realtors has recently made an administrative decision that said there can be no disbursement to the sales representative at the settlement table. The full compensation has to be sent to the broker, and then the broker will distribute the money to the sales rep. The problem with that is it could be 1 day, or it could be 1 week, or 2 weeks. The broker controls the issue. This bill clarifies that and actually it's done by a title company, is the one who makes the disbursement. That money will be distributed based upon the instructions of the real estate broker, the head of the office. And if he says that the sales agent is eligible for 1.5% of the commission off the deal, it can happen at the settlement table. It's a clarifying bill, no committee amendments. Move the favorable report.
All right, floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Chair recognizes Senator from Montgomery County on the report.
Thank you for that, Mr. President. Would the floor leader yield for a couple questions, please?
Yield? Pure so.
I would love to have this discussion, Senator.
I always welcome discussions with you, my good friend. So who brought this bill to you?
The real estate agents. I'm sorry, several real estate agents who found it difficult to get their compensation in the manner which was traditionally processed.
And you said it was the Board of Realtors that recently changed the process. Is that my understanding?
That's right. It was an interpretation. It wasn't a change in the law. It was an interpretation of the current law. So we're just clarifying that provision.
And who was it that made that interpretation, and what was the catalyst to it being interpreted now differently than it had been in the past?
Senator, that's a great question, and I don't know the name of the person who made the decision. But generally, these decisions are made by legal counsel to the State Board of Realtors. So they had a change in that office, and the new legal person made that interpretation.
And who came in and testified in support of the bill?
Great question. Bill Costelli, who is the president of the Maryland Board of Realtors. So we have the real estate board, the administrators, and the, what we call the Maryland Realtors, the people who represent the sales representatives, came in, an individual.
No, but clarify for me, who was in support and was there any opposition? So right now you're saying in support of the legislation were the following entities.
Yes.
Or individuals, and who are those?
Sure. Patricia Long from the Maryland Realtors, Clifford Clapp from Versus Title.
All right, so these are individuals.
Favorable.
Okay.
William Costelli, president of Maryland Realtors, and
in support.
In support.
Okay.
Written support from Elizabeth Sanabria from Germantown, One person came in unfavorable. From the Maryland Land Title Association, Mary Claire Schuler.
And that was the only unfavorable?
One unfavorable.
Okay.
And it was written.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that, Mr. Floor Leader. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you,
Mr.
Senator. All right, any further questions on the report? Any further questions? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 425 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 440, Senator Bidle, Commission to Study the Healthcare Workforce Crisis in Maryland. Establishment favorable with 2 amendments.
This is an important one, too. Chair recognizes Senator from Baltimore City as a floor leader.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. As we all know, and we've seen, there is a healthcare workforce crisis in Maryland. It preceded the pandemic and has only been exacerbated by it. This commission has a very targeted goal of studying and addressing this. It is of short duration, and the committee felt like it was so important that we made a number of amendments to the bill. Amendment number 1 modifies the composition, requiring the commission to assemble an advisory committee of stakeholder work groups, specified representatives. It also requires the commission to specifically study wages as a strategy to reduce turnover. It requires the commission to consult with Department of Veterans Affairs. The amendment modifies the report requirements to require 2 reports. So we wanted an interim report as well as a report, as a second final report. And the second amendment makes the bill an emergency bill. We asked for the commission. It will be the Secretary of Health is going to designate the chair of the commission, and there will be a number of agencies, academic institutions, and workforce specialists that would be a part of this committee. I asked for the adoption of the committee amendments and the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now on the amended report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 440 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. All right, we've got another referral out of Budget and Tax. This is Calendar 8. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 955, Senator Benson, Maryland School for the Deaf, Professional and Personnel Staff Service Designation, Assignment, and Placement in a Collective Bargaining Unit. Re-referred to Finance.
All right, the bill will be re-referred to the Committee on Finance. We've got a judicial proceedings. Calendar 10, clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 392, the President, State Commission on Criminal Sentencing Policy, Plea Agreements, and Annual Report. The Judicial Transparency Act of 2022, favorable with 3 amendments. This is an emergency bill.
Chair recognizes Chair of the committee as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Judicial Transparency Act, as amended, this administrative bill expands the reporting requirements of the Maryland State Commission on Criminal Sentencing Policy by requiring them to provide in its annual report additional information for cases involving crimes of violence, and it must also include information in the new reporting system, which has to be presented on the website, which is a data dashboard. There were 3 amendments, Mr. President. It makes technical changes and sets the effective date to October 1st. Amendment number 2 strikes provisions of the bill relating to the guidelines compliance, and amendment number 3 strikes the reporting requirement as drafted, establishes the new reporting requirement, and requires data dashboard as specified. I'd move for the adoption of the 3 committee amendments and the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the 3 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. Chair recognizes the minority whip on the amendments.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wonder if the chair would yield for question on the amendments?
Senator will yield. Senator may proceed.
So you ran down the amendments, but I just want to be clear about what the amendments do on the bill. And of course, I support the bill, and I'm glad we're moving it. Amendment number 1 I'm trying to look at it through the reprint and through the eyes. Does this amendment deal with whether we're going to aggregate the reporting from counties versus an individual jurists, individual judges?
So Amendment 1 strictly deals with the effective date, so it came in as an emergency bill, now it's kicking it back to October to give them, the commission, a little bit more time to make adjustments.
Okay.
Number 3 is where I think you're coming from. And what it did essentially was, so there are 8 judicial circuits in Maryland, and what we did was we said we want a little bit more granularity, more visibility, so we did it by county. But there are several counties in which there's only one circuit court judge sitting, and so what we did for those 3, which I think I can pull it up here. Well, it's actually in the bill. It's the First Circuit, the Second Circuit, and the Fourth Judicial Circuit. Those judges had only, they had a couple counties in that circuit that only had one judge, and so to provide a little bit more granularity and balancing it with not wanting to identify an individual judge, we merged those counties into circuits. So the First Circuit, the Second Circuit, and the Fourth Circuit. Everywhere else is done by county.
Okay, and the original, though, without amendment number 3, the original would have itemized it also by individual case and by individual judge?
That's correct.
Okay, Mr. President, I would like to move that we not accept amendment number 3 from the committee. Normally, I'm used to voting to accept or reject all the committee amendments. I think in this case, amendment number 1 and amendment number 2, I think we could adopt those, but I'd like to have a discussion about amendment number 3.
All right, so the senator has moved to separate out amendment number 3. It's granted by right, so we will move that one separately. So before the body at the moment are committee amendments 1 and 2. Any further discussion on committee amendments 1 or 2? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The committee's amendments 1 and 2 are adopted. Question now before the body is amendment number 3, committee amendment number 3. Senator, on amendment number 3?
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to speak on this amendment, if I might, and I will ask for a roll call vote on this whenever we're done discussing it. I'm really happy the bill is out here on the floor. I support it strongly, and some transparency is better than what right now we have, which is almost no transparency. However, I think the point of this was to make sure that we can analyze sentencing and how our publicly taxpayer-funded and paid judges are performing relative to comparing their caseload to and the kind of sentences that they are handing out compared to the standards of the sentencing guidelines and also to their peers and their colleagues. One of the reasons that I've heard was part of the committee when we heard this bill before, there's always a lot of opposition to say you don't want to pick out one judge and 1 or 2 bad cases or tough cases and try to pin a judge and make them look like they're soft on crime or too tough on crime or whatever. The way this is structured is this would give you it would look at the broad scope of someone's record. It would make sure that we can compare the records across a longer period of time and give us real transparency on what's happening inside these courtrooms relative to sentencing. And I think people should be held accountable, just like my votes are accountable. When I have had times people will criticize me for a vote I've taken on something, and I try to explain, well, there were several amendments on that bill that changed the bill. Judges should not be immune from scrutiny of their record. And obviously, though, it should be in context. And so this would still, the way the bill was written currently, would still allow for context. But I think what we're doing here is we're watering down that transparency. And again, I still support the bill, but we're watering down the transparency with this amendment. And I just firmly think we should keep the bill more in the posture that it was in to make sure that we have that transparency, openness. We are really suffering a crisis in parts of our state relative to getting people off the streets, getting cases cleared, and keeping people that are committed repeat violent crimes. They're not getting the time that they should be getting, and it's making our communities less safe. So that's why I support striking amendment number 3, and I'd ask the body to join me, and I would ask for a roll call, Mr. President.
Chair recognizes the chair of the committee on and just as a quick, I was having a conversation with our Secretary of the Senate. One of the challenges of separating out committee amendments is that normally committee amendment number 1 does the purpose paragraph, and if there are subsequent amendments, if one doesn't, it's purpose. I think we're okay on this particular one, but that's the challenge with doing it separate normally. But just as a point of parliamentary procedure, we're fine here, but just for moving forward.
No, the senator makes excellent points, and I think that's exactly what this bill does. And in our committee discussions, we tried to strike that balance between providing more granularity and transparency, but also with not infusing politics into the process. Now, look, I'm pulling up the map, the judicial circuit map. And if you look at the map, there are several circuits, and we've now broken them down into counties, in which there are, Hartford County has 6 judges, Washington County 6 judges, Calvert County 3, Charles 5, these are circuit court judges, Frederick 6, Anne Arundel 13, Carroll 4, Howard 5. That's the type of granularity you're going to get with this bill. And as you know, we still elect our judges, our circuit court judges. And so there is the tendency for politics to seep in, and what you want is to insulate the process from that. So we've dug down to get a level of granularity. You're going to have more information. It's going to be presented on a dashboard, easily accessible, and you can manipulate the data so that the public can actually have more of an understanding of what's happening. And you'll be able to provide trend analysis to understand which regions are doing what, and if there are any irregularities, and if there are, then we can propose legislation and address it that way. But I would urge the body to resist this amendment, or the motion, to accept the amendment, to resist the motion to remove the amendment for those reasons. So with that, thank you, Mr. President. A little weird jujitsu here. But,
no, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Chair recognizes the senator from the 34th District on the amendment.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. And I accept the representations by both my colleagues. I think there's just one more piece we ought to look at this is certainly within counties that have 6 judges, 5 judges, 4 judges, you're pretty transparent. I mean, that's a level of granularity that probably isn't too offensive. On the other hand, the major jurisdictions in the state have like 30 judges, 35 judges, 28 judges. So you're not going to get any level of granularity at all with those. It would be like saying, let's take, instead of you getting a report card in your class of 30 kids, we'll just send every parent home the average. So the class average was a B. Well, how did my kid do? Well, the class average was a B. Well, is he Einstein, or did he fail everything? Well, your class average will be. That doesn't tell you anything, and that's what we're doing here. On these major jurisdictions, we have 30, 35 judges. To say the class average is a C, it's somewhat useless data. And I'll grant that for those smaller jurisdictions where you have 4, 3 judges, yeah, it's a pretty good level of granularity, but certainly not on the major ones. So that's the reason I oppose this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes the senator from District 10 on the amendment.
The problem I see with the amendment is I think it's going after something that doesn't reflect the reality of what the Sentencing Commission does. I sat on that commission for 25 years. We do not evaluate judge by judge on the Sentencing Commission. That is outside of its scope and its purview. So you're asking for something that is really not under the aegis of the entity that you're looking at with regard to this bill.
All right. On the amendment, any senators who have not yet spoken who wish to speak? Chair recognizes the minority leader on the amendment.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. And I can just tell you in the public, there's this perception, and you see it on national news with cases where judges are letting violent criminals out much earlier than they should. And they don't understand that. And I think part of the reason of this is to let the public know who's doing that and why. And the senator from Hartford County brought up the point that you have these large jurisdictions which has a large number of judges. It's really hard to say if you got a B average, did everybody have B, or did somebody give harsher and somebody gave really low? You can't get that from this amendment. Additionally, you throw in large categories of crimes. Take murder, where you have 100 or 200 murders a year, and you put that in here. These are large numbers. So the intent, I believe, of the original bill without this amendment was to give more transparency into those situations. So just ask the floor leader one quick question.
Well, floor leader yield. So, Senator may proceed.
So I understand what the original bill intent was. They would get this information, it would be really granular, and they could hone in on that. In these bigger jurisdictions, the way this amendment is drafted, what is the outcome that the committee is expecting when they get this report? Is it just a report, or will we be able to look at that data and actually take some action?
So yes, it's a report, and you will be able to look at the data, and you will be able to take action. And so to get a sense of where this is going, you could look on the website. The Sentencing Commission already produces an annual report with some of this data in it. And it shows you the percentage of deviation from guidelines. I mean, it gets pretty good. I mean, it's a pretty good list of information that you're going to get out of this report. It's going to be more accessible and easily digestible than ever before. So you're going to get that. Now, to the larger jurisdiction piece, you're still going to be able to break that information down by jurisdiction. You're just not going to be able to know the individual judge. And so if there's a problem, let's say, for instance, hypothetically speaking, there are 36 or 35 circuit court judges in Baltimore City. Yes, there are 30 people that you're going to be disaggregating that information from, but you're going to be able to see if Baltimore City varies grossly from Baltimore County or Harford County or Montgomery County or Allegheny. You're going to be able to make those comparisons and do that trend analysis. And so if there's a problem in a certain jurisdiction, you got it. You're going to be able to see it.
And just with this information, so say there's 100 or 200 murders, the average comes in 15 years, whatever, I don't know what the average would be. In those numbers, you could have somebody let somebody out, and I don't know mandatory minimum, so I don't go too much on the technicality of it, but some could give 5 years or 7 years, and some could give 23 years. Will we be able to see that information, or is it just going to show the average is 15 years?
You're going to see that, you're going to see that, right? You're going to see those two nodes of information, but you're not going to be able to see which judge did which one. But one thing I'd caution, I thought this is brought up in the committee, and this is very compelling, is that sometimes you'll have the same crime, two different perpetrators, right, with vastly different backgrounds. One with a long history of criminal past, one it's their first interaction or infraction. So the sentence, even though it's the same crime, will be different because it's fact intensive, and the person with no criminal history may have more leniency given to them than someone with a long past. The reports, when you do this like binary analysis, the reports don't tease out that information, and that's the danger you get when you go to the individual judge and you say, look, you can't compare apples to apples or oranges to apples to oranges. They're just two different things. So we're going to be able to get good information, but it's really tough to get that type of granular information for a case-by-case thing, and it's not fair to a judge that may deviate from another judge because the facts are just so different in a case. It's not useful either.
Okay, thank you.
All right, on the amendment, Senators requested a roll call vote. Just to clarify, because we had a little bit of questions. So the vote is to accept the committee amendment. So a green vote would be to accept the third committee amendment. A red vote would be to reject the committee amendment. Any further discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 29 votes in the affirmative, the third committee amendment is adopted. Question before the body now is on the favorable committee report as amended. Any discussion? Oh, yes, Chair recognizes the senator from the 32nd District.
Thank you, Mr. President. May I ask the floor leader, the chairman, to yield, please?
The floor to yield. Pierce, Senator may proceed.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, I was just looking at the testimony, and there were quite a few unfavorables, one of which was Chief Judge Morrissey and some other significant opposition. Do your amendments help to correct their opposition?
So that's what I was talking about balance earlier, where they didn't want the individual judges to be named for the multitude of reasons we kind of talked about, because it's hard to do the case-specific analysis and with numbers like this, but also because we still elect our circuit court judges, and that infuses politics into the data and the process and into the judicial system. So yes, we did not get a letter of information afterwards, but we did work with the judiciary through this process, and so the committee felt that this was struck the right balance between getting that granular information and not exposing individual judges.
Thank you.
All right, question is on the report, on the amended report. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Chair recognizes the senator from Howard County. has an amendment?
Mr. President, I think I'd like to be recorded in the green on Senator Reedy's amendment.
Senator,
From Carroll County.
On the committee amendment from red to green.
From green to,
Yeah, in the green. It was not, okay, in the green. The senator, are there any objections to the senator's motion? Without objection, so ordered.
Were you all?
She wouldn't be on the other side. It was not the senator's amendment, it was the committee amendment. So from green to red, Are there any objections? Any objections? Without objection, so ordered. That was a confusing one. In the future for committee amendments, I think the general policy would be we adopt and then do an amendment to take out. More a drafting convenience, not necessarily a rule-based, but all right. I think that does it for that calendar. Is that right? All right. Let's go ahead and do a quorum call for third readers.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their presence? If we could ring the bells. All right, the clerk will take the call. With 45 members in the chamber and a quorum being present, the Senate of Maryland remains in session. We've got third reading calendar number 20. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 91, Senator Jackson, Business Regulation, Innkeepers, Maintenance of Guest Records, and Employee Human Trafficking Awareness, Training, and Policy.
Senate Bill 91 is on third reader for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? Yes, Chair recognizes the senator from the 36th District. Has 2 minutes to explain his vote.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Just in explaining the vote, I don't disagree with the premise of this bill. However, I just feel that it's unnecessary. The testimony of the Maryland Hotel and Lodging Administration clearly says that the American Hotel and Lodging Association has led industry efforts nationally with the No Room for Trafficking campaign that includes the goals of training every hotel employee. While the Maryland Hotel and Lodging Association, again, was in favor of the bill, Mr. President, I'm simply just voting against the continuous conjectures of the Maryland General Assembly to pass bills mandating what private sector businesses are already doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Any further senators wish to explain their vote? Chair recognizes the senator from the 27th District. Has 2 minutes to explain his vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. And as a sponsor of the bill, I will say this, and a person who's been in public safety for over 30 years, there is not a limit to the number of times that we need to make our community aware of the challenges that we have. This is about human trafficking. So that's why I sponsored the bill, and that's why I voted green on the bill.
Thank you, Senator. All right. Any further explanations of votes? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 32 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 91, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 119, Senator Washington, Education Crimes on School Grounds Application.
Senate Bill 119 is on third reader for final passage. Chair recognizes the senator from the 34th District.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I want to speak against this bill for a minute. There were two main arguments given in support of this bill. The first was an alleged racist legislative history for this bill, and the second is that it was unnecessary. And I would posit to you that both are very wrong. Take first one, the legislative history. This bill was first adopted in 1870. Where were we in 1870? The schools were segregated. The African-American schools that existed had just been established by President Abraham Lincoln through the Freedmen's Society. They began to set up freedmen's schools. My own county, we built the first one in about 1869. And I'll just note that through the generosity of this body, we've used bond bills over the last 8 years I've been in this body to repeatedly donate money to restore and use those as museums. Thank you for that. But those schools were highly respected by the African Americans who had just spent about 200 years being denied a public education. So certainly there were no African Americans interfering with their use of their schools. But who was interfering with their schools? Obviously the white racist who didn't like the fact that African Americans were now having their own schools. So this bill comes up in 1870 To the extent that whites are interfering in their own schools, certainly that would be the case. And I'll just posit to you that that was in fact happening in my own county. A group of young white men ambushed the schoolmaster on his way to school and killed him. Others tried to burn down a schoolhouse. So these are white children attacking white teachers and white schoolhouses. So that was not unheard of. And then what's the next time this bill comes up? It's mentioned legislative history in 1999. What happens then? Well, in response to a terribly escalating murder rate, that this body enacts a number of changes. And those changes were quite successful, because in the 14 years after the enactment of those changes, and it wasn't just this change but others, the murder rate continued to fall. And it fell without abatement for 14 years in the state of Maryland, until policies changed in 2014 that started us on and reversed that, and it started us on our current trajectory, which has resulted in, again, a reversal, steady increase, making parts of our state the murder capitals of the country. As to being unnecessary, we discussed last week about how with this bill, if a young person is disruptive, violent, of course it was said, well, you don't need this. You can prosecute them under the criminal law article, where it'd be a misdemeanor punishable by 10 years. Well, is that really what we want? Because under the current law, under the education article, the punishment is limited to 6 months. And I would posit to you that if you look at a young man's or young woman's criminal history record when they're coming for a job, as an employer, I'd be much more lenient seeing that they were punished for a violation of the education article, because we've all been in school before, and we all know that kids in school do a lot of dumb things, and that probably a violation of education article isn't the worst thing. But if I see a criminal law violation, it's going to raise my hackles. I'm going to dig a whole lot deeper on a criminal law violation. So the whole justification for this bill, in my opinion, is not there. Colleagues, we got to protect our schools. We cannot allow a small number of violently and seriously disruptive students to attack our teachers and our students and deprive them of a meaningful education. We have to have a no tolerance for violence in our schools. Our schools should be orderly places of learning and not survival camps. I ask that you to allow our teachers to teach and our students to learn. Please do not remove this very important tool from the toolbox of our schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes the senator from Baltimore City on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for a couple of things. The bill was passed, the original version of this was passed in 1865. And again, you're right, it was for white schools, because that's all there were in 1865, pretty much through 1870. And it was designed against, there were white Marylanders and African American Marylanders who were protesting these segregated schools. As you recall, Maryland did not desegregate its schools until well into the 50s. The other thing I have to address on the record is, again, there was a gap, colleagues, of a lot of the history of the bill, and I just want to remind and correct the record that the provisions were recodified and strengthened in 1957, specifically following Brown Board versus Education and the Supreme Court, and specifically following Morgan State College's staging a sit-in at Reed's Drugstore at Howard and Lexington. So again, very clearly this bill tracks those things. It was amended in 1970, and again, colleagues, this is the one that is really what drove and really tells about the true intent of the legislation. In 1970, the bill's sponsor, when it was brought to Governor Mandel, said, not that this is a bill to protect our students, not that this is a bill to protect our children, and not that it is a tool for discipline, but he said, and I quote, "It is a handy weapon with which to end disturbances, disorders, and riots." So again, on that case, it's very clear this is not a tool. It's been used as a weapon quite successfully. The other issue that I want to correct, and again, I ask for your support of this bill, and you should feel comfortable doing it, that there have been assertions that students are not being, that there were no other tools, that students are not being able to be suspended. In Maryland in 2019, so pre-pandemic, there were over 45,000 students suspended. And the majority of those students were suspended for fighting each other. But then there is this other gap. About 40 of them are in this indiscriminate category of disruption and disturbance. The other thing that's very interesting, and as we said, there is a racial component to it that we've articulated, that of the students suspended and then also eligible in this law, that while there are only 33% in the whole state of students that are African American, 52% of those that are suspended are African American. And there's some very interesting disparities within our jurisdictions. Anne Arundel County has twice the number. There's only 20% students, and they make up 41% of those suspended. In Charles County, they make up 55%, and 75% are suspended. In Frederick County, blacks make up 12% of the population, and they are 23% of those that are suspended. Howard County, 19% of the population, and 34% suspended. And in Howard County, I was actually surprised at this, but they make up only 24% of the county and 58% of students that are suspended. So colleagues, these laws we know are discriminatory. It is vague. This law should be at least amended so that students are not going to be disproportionately impacted by this bill, that by this portion of our law that not only has a terrible history, it is unequally applied, and it is not making anyone safer. I ask for you to vote green on this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. All right, Chair recognizes the Minority Whip on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill, particularly at this time that we stand in, sends the wrong message. This bill is not about suspension policy, by the way. This bill is about altering a statute that simply says a person may not willfully disturb or willfully prevent the orderly conduct of the activities, administration, or classes of any institution of elementary, secondary, or higher education. A person may not molest or threaten with bodily harm, and yes, we know molest can mean simply badly bothered, but threaten with bodily harm any student, employee, administrator, agent, or other individual who is lawfully on the grounds or immediate vicinity of any institution of elementary, secondary, or higher education, school vehicle, or activities that's sponsored by a school. I don't know what's controversial about that. I don't understand what's controversial about that. What this bill is doing is exempting people from having to follow that rule, exempting them from consequences that can be brought by the school system. I'm opposed to SB 119 because it inverts the problem. The problem in our schools is disruption and the lack of discipline that has taken over classrooms and school buildings. And we see it in society. There is a breakdown of discipline. There's a breakdown of positive family involvement with their children. We don't save children by having the view and teaching them the view that eventual strong consequences for repeated bad behavior, criminal behavior, disruptive behavior, are bad. When we pass bills like this, sending the message, if you vote for this bill, it's sending the message that eventual strong consequences are the problem, as opposed to the necessary standard and solution that's needed for an orderly, safe, and ultimately successful life and an ultimately successful society. We talked earlier in this debate, and it's been a good debate. It's been a good discussion. We talked earlier in this debate about not wanting to see children be discarded or thrown away in some fashion. You don't help children that are being disruptive by telling them that it's okay and it's the system's fault that you're being blamed for your bad behavior. That's not how we solve the problems in our school. And I will tell you right now, when I talk to teachers, staff, and parents, and I've talked to them in my county, and I've talked to them around the state, they all say the biggest problem that they face, even relatively so-called, safe schools or schools that perform well academically, no matter, let's run the gamut, that the biggest problem day to day in making sure they can do what we want them to do in schools, which is be able to teach and the kids be able to learn, is that there really are, even before we pass this bill, there's really almost no tools to deal with outright defiance and outright disruptive behavior. You really can't do anything to a student if they just stand in the middle of the classroom and start yelling. Certainly can't, not that you should grab them, but you have to quietly try to calmly usher them out of the room, but you can't keep a disruptive student out of a classroom for longer than a couple hours to get some sort. There's no tools at their disposal. Very few tools at their disposal. It's already very difficult. This bill is saying for a dangerous and disruptive student, and I just described one that you wouldn't call dangerous, you'd say disruptive, but not dangerous. But for dangerous and disruptive students, we're absolving them. And yes, we know in the criminal code there could be criminal charges perhaps, but a lot of these things fall short of being able to prosecute criminally. But there needs to be a final standard that says you are accountable for your actions. And just to reiterate, Mr. President, I'll be voting no on this bill. I encourage the body to reject this bill because of the message it sends to the hardworking teachers and staff administrators and to parents. It sends the wrong message. And I just would urge the body to reject this bill. This is a time when we need to actually be re-embracing the concept of consequences for your action and discipline. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. All right, on the bill, are there any senators who have not yet spoken who wish to speak? I think we know the issues. Chair recognizes the senator from 34th District.
Yes, President. I'd just like to respond to the arguments because, again, two arguments made now. One is that suspensions are disproportionately affecting African Americans. First of all, this bill has nothing to do with suspensions, and if the body will recall, last year we passed a bill addressing that very issue on suspensions. So that's not this bill at all, okay? So take that one off. The next one is the legislative history. It was just said again that this bill was in 1865. I'm holding the bill. I'm holding the legislative history. It's right here in my hand. I had them all printed out. It's 3 times this big. This bill was enacted in this piece of the law was enacted in 1872, not 1865. What's happening in 1865? In 1865, at this time, for the legislature meeting, we're still in the Civil War. It's wrapping up. What are African Americans doing? They're fighting in the Civil War. They're not paying attention to school protests. That's absurd. They're fighting in the Civil War, including the Sergeant Hilton from my district, who was actually fighting heroically and awarded the Medal of Honor, the only Medal of Honor winner from my entire county in our county history, fighting heroically. This is passed in 1872 after the freedmen schools have been, they're opening, they're operating, the brand new freedmen schools. That's what this bill was addressed towards. It was not an attack on African Americans. This body did not do that. This body did not approve that in 1872. That's not what this body did. So I just think it's important to set the record straight. This is not an 1865 bill still fighting the Civil War. Civil War is over. We've moved, and we're defending with this bill the establishment of the freedmen schools across this state. Thank you.
All right. Are there any senators who have not yet spoken who wish to speak? If not, the bill is on third reader. Can we ring the bells? Senators, just as a quick note, there's a pretty serious fire happening in Silver Spring in an apartment complex. So that's where our chairman was just going to check. So just pray for the first responders are there and those in the building. Only quick reports do not look great. Do not look great. All right. Senate Bill 119 is on third reader. With no further discussion, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote?
Mr. President.
Chair recognizes the senator from District 6 has 2 minutes to explain his vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yesterday, we had an incident in Chesapeake High School. A student was arrested Wednesday. Baltimore County Police were called in the school in Essex. A student resource officer, an armed police officer, was at the scene, and additional police officers were called there. And a physical altercation between two of the students is what happened, the police said. One of the student police officers, resource officers, were assaulted while the breaking up of the fight, the police said. I say that for this reason. How did it get to that? And I think about that. Was it before that maybe there was before the altercation, that maybe there was an incident of screaming or something else happened? There was maybe a smaller incident that you could say that we shouldn't say we should do something about. But I'm looking at this, and most of the time, when an altercation happens, there's something that happened before that. So I think going red with this bill answers a call in some areas that we know that at times, there's times that people are saying things that they shouldn't be saying or doing something else to provoke. And then it comes to an altercation. And that's why we need to do something before that, before it becomes an altercation, before it comes into an incident like that. And that's why I'm voting red, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Any further senators wish to explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 30 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 119, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 217, Chair Finance Committee, Commissioner of Financial Regulation, Consumer Loans, Payment and Fees.
Senate Bill 217 is on third reader for final passage. Chair recognizes the senator from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd ask the floor leader if we could special order this bill. I have a number of questions still about it I'd like clarified.
Any objections to the senator's motion?
I guess I can't do anything but give in.
Okay.
I appreciate it greatly. Thank you very much, Madam
Without
Chair.
objection, the bill will be special ordered at the appropriate time tomorrow. All right, clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 226, the President Annual Curative Bill. This is an emergency bill.
Senate Bill 226 is on third reader for final passage. Senators, this is an emergency bill. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 46 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 226, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 228, Senator Ferguson, Maryland Core Program Revisions.
Senate Bill 228 is on third reader for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 46 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 228, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 253, Senator Kelly, Maryland Health Care Commission User Fee Assessments.
Senate Bill 253 is on third reader for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? Chair recognizes the senator from the 36th district has 2 minutes to explain his vote.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Just quickly explaining the vote. This bill increases the collection of user fees that the MHCC can assess against hospitals, nursing homes, payers, and practitioners. And while I certainly appreciate all the individuals and work of the MHCC, there was committee testimony that our nursing homes and assisted living facilities are still struggling to recover from the effects of the pandemic. And Mr. President, I just don't believe now is the appropriate time to be raising user fees on our nursing homes. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Any further explanations? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 30 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 253, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 256, Senator Bidle, Maryland Energy Administration Resiliency Hub Grant Program and Fund.
Senate Bill 256 is on third reader for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 46 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 256, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 380, Senator Benson, Public Health, Emergency and Allergy Treatment Program, Nurse Practitioners.
Senate Bill 380 is on third reader for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 46 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 380, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 406, the President Annual Corrective Bill. This is an emergency bill.
Senate Bill 406 is on third reader for final passage. Senators, this is an emergency bill. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 46 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 406, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 531, Senator Bidle, Maryland Health Care Commission, Assisted Living Program Study.
Senate Bill 531 is on third reader for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 46 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 531, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 539, Senator Elfreth, Anne Arundel County Special Taxing Districts Exemptions.
Senate Bill 539 is on third reader for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 46 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 539, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 590, Senator Augustine, Public Health, Behavioral Risk Factor Surveillance System Requirements.
Senate Bill 590 is on third reader for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 45 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 590, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Chair recognizes the Senator from Montgomery County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to be recorded in the green for Senate Bill 594.
Any objections to Senator's motion? Without objection, so ordered. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 594, Senator Gazzoni, Winery and Vineyard Economic Development Grant Program.
Senate Bill 594 is on third reader for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 46 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 594, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. All right, Senators, I think we're going to leave the rest for unfinished business. We have some meetings today at noon. Let's do committee announcements. Chair recognizes the Chair of Finance.
Finance will meet at 1 p.m. for bill hearings, and following that, we will be voting.
All right, Chair recognizes the Chair of Education, Health, and Environmental Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. President. Education, Health, and Environmental Affairs will meet at 1 p.m. for bill hearings. I think we have 8 or 10 bills, followed by a voting list, which I think you received early this morning or late last night, of about 10 or 12 bills. And Senate colleagues, while I'm up, as has been noted, we're trying to move as many bills as we can. There are a lot of bills in our committee, 305, I believe. We're voting 3 times a week. We're trying to get to as many bills as we can. If we haven't gotten to yours, it's a matter of capacity. So we're working on it. Thank you. 1 o'clock.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And it was just looking at the reports today. It looks like EE is about 50 bills, 50 or 60 bills above any other committee. So EE is doing some Herculean work, doing the best possible. It's just a lot of bills, a lot of bills. Chair recognizes the Chair of Budget and Tax.
Thank you, Mr. President. At 12:30 today, the Joint Committee on Pensions will be doing a briefing on our investment policies as related to Russia and Ukraine. Then at 1 today, all 3 of our operating subcommittees will be meeting at 1 o'clock.
Thank you, Senator. All right, important one at 12:30 as well. Chair recognizes Chair of Judicial Proceedings.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Judicial Proceedings Committee will meet today at 1 p.m. for bill hearings.
1 p.m. Yes, Chair recognizes the Senator from Montgomery County, or Vice Chair of Finance.
Yeah, just very quickly, tomorrow morning at 9:30 a.m., Finance will have a work session on the Time to Care Act legislation. So 9:30 a.m., members of the Finance Committee.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes Chair of Budget and Tax.
I know why I forgot this, because it's agonizing. 6:30 voting also tonight.
Woo! Late night Thursday. All right. Any other standing committee announcements, select committee announcements, any other general announcements? All right, Senators, two important, yes. Chair recognizes Senator from Montgomery County or Vice Chair V? Senator from Montgomery County.
Senator from Montgomery County. Colleagues, every year we acknowledge and appreciate so many of the people who help us do our jobs, and whether that's our staff, President's staff, DLS, the amendment writers, fiscal writers, we acknowledge the Office of Information Systems, so many folks. But there's some people in our complex who are too often invisible. And I just want to give a shout out. After 17 years of cleaning our building, Cindy Johnson, retired this week.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Before that, she worked for 30 years in our school system, and I have to say, cleaning up after us just can't be the most fun job. So I just think we ought to make sure that we recognize and see these people and appreciate them and do our bit in whatever way we can, not to leave a hot mess for them when we leave for the day, whatever time of day or night that might be, because they have families and they're not being paid enough to do all that. So I want to appreciate lovely Cindy, who has been in my office for a lot of years, and everyone else who does that for all of us. Thank you, Mr.
Senator.
President.
And thank you, and we were very appreciative of Cindy's work. She's a wonderful, wonderful person. Appreciate her service. Chair recognizes the Chair of the Baltimore City Delegation.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just wanted to say that the Baltimore City Delegation will meet tomorrow at 8 a.m. It will be virtual.
All right, thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes the Senator from Montgomery County.
Thank you, Mr. President. As you noted, Mr. President, there was a large explosion in Montgomery County in the heart of my legislative district. It appears to have leveled an apartment building in the Littonsville area, which is a historically African-American community founded by free men and freed slaves. Details are still coming in right now. I'm in touch with our former colleague, Rich Madalino, who is coordinating the response. We pray first for the firefighters who are running in as others run out, and of course we pray for the families and residents of that complex, and I'll share more news as we have it. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. I'm so sorry to hear that. Just awful, awful. Chair recognizes the Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I normally don't get up on personal issues, but a committee staff member just shared with me today, one of my constituents, 4-year-old Brina Corcoran, has a brain tumor. It's inoperable, no cure. She has about a month to live. It's really tough on the family, and they're asking for prayers. I believe in miracles. I believe you're my family, so I just wanted to share that with you publicly, and if you would keep her in your prayers, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Senator. Most certainly. Gosh, that's awful. Chair recognizes Senator from District 30.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Anne Arundel County delegation will meet tomorrow at 8 a.m. via Zoom to take up 3 bills. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. All right, any other announcements? Two important announcements. The first is having to do with the budget, which certainly the Chair of Budget and Tax will have a lot more to say as we move forward. We've had this historic surplus. The amount of requests for funding that have come in have been astronomical this year. It is truly unbelievable. And so the Budget and Taxation Committee is going to do the best that they possibly can. They're going to take a thoughtful approach. But inevitably, because of the number of asks, there are going to be a lot of disappointed people. And so just want to kind of level set expectations that the sense of what is flexible money, we have got to be fiscally prudent this year, and we don't want to set ourselves up for a problem down the road. And so just wanted to start to set those expectations as the Budget Committee is starting to move things forward, and we'll have it on the floor here pretty soon. So that's a sort of generalized announcement. The next announcement is change to our policies, change to our COVID policies. So today, in Maryland, our positivity rate has dropped for the first time below 2%. We're at 1.9%, which is great. Hospitalizations are down to 345 people. So we are, at some of the lowest points that we've been through this pandemic, which is great news. And so, as you all have heard me say time and time again, we're going to assess where we are, and we're going to make changes as necessary. On Friday, the CDC changed its guidance around masking, and so when you look at the map, the new CDC guidance almost in the entire state of Maryland is in green. And so the Speaker and I and the Governor have been having conversations about the State House and the buildings. And so starting on Monday, March 7th, masks will be encouraged but not required in the State House, the Senate floor, and the Senate House and Legislative Services building. Senators, will be State House, Senate floor, Senate House, and Legislative Services building. So, look, the good news is we've substantially reduced COVID's impact. The one thing I would ask, the one thing that is really important, and my wife and I were having this conversation about an experience she had in Dunkin' Donuts, where the application of the mask rule was different between each person. This whole experience, there have been sort of the science-based side of it, and then how people feel. And that is the hardest aspect to balance through all of it. And so, while sometimes both of those have traveled in the same direction, in other times they haven't traveled in the same direction. And so there are folks that are still very nervous about the environment and are encouraged to continue wearing their masks. What I'd ask members and those on the campus to just be mindful that people have different reactions about what this entire pandemic has been, where they are, and to just be really thoughtful in our engagements with one another, because this is the most uncertain time in the last 100 years, and so everybody's trying to navigate it. Everybody has different feelings about it, and just want to make sure that everyone is thoughtful about others' individual precautions. So that change will be in effect as of Monday. Certainly, if anybody has questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me directly, and we can talk through anything. But that change will take place, State House and the buildings. Yes, Chair recognizes the Chair.
Just a clarification, Mr.
Yes, please.
President. The Miller Building and the committee rooms, does that fall under that?
The campus overall,
Okay.
including the State House. All right. Yes, Chair recognizes Senator from Prince George's.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Prince George's senators will be meeting tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock.
Tomorrow at 9, Prince George's. Chair recognizes Senator from Baltimore County. We'll do, yes.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a clarification, are we still required to do testing each week?
Testing is going to remain for now on Tuesdays, and we'll monitor as we go. We're taking one step at a time. What's that? Chair recognizes the Chair of Rules Committee.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. President. The Rules Committee will be meeting after session tomorrow. Thank you.
All right. Tomorrow after session, rules. From Baltimore County District 8? Nope. All set? All right. Anything else? If not, let's do a quorum call before we adjourn.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their presence? If so, the clerk will take the call. With 46 members in the chamber and a quorum being present, the Senate of Maryland remains in session. Chair recognizes the Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate of Maryland stand adjourned until Friday, May 4th at 11 a.m.
11 a.m. without objection, so ordered. Stay safe. Have a great day, everyone.